and I would always say it's non-traditional, but it tends to be a concept that is quite three-dimensionally orientated. And what I mean by that is that a lot of really good ambient advertising actually involves A, PR agencies, and B, performers. So people who are actually up there performing or acting out a role or dressing up in a certain way. So it's quite a theatrical type experience. A lot of it's actually connected with what they call experiential branding or marketing. You may want to write that one down, which is what a lot of the best brands out there now are doing, where they're trying to get the customer or the consumer involved in more of the holistic experience. I hate using that word, but getting them involved. Like when they walk in a store and, you know, they can smell things and they can see things, and there's people acting out certain...
Because I know Target did a campaign a campaign for toys for kids, where they actually had actors out the front with huge big hands around them so they looked like little toys, and doing play fighting out in front of the stores. Yeah,
so trade shows obviously would be a great arena that you could potentially look at implementing something ambient like.
Now, what about advertising in the local leader newspapers, the local press? What's the process, and is it worth doing?
Funnily enough, I still think it is, even though I've just spent the last 10 minutes talking about very non-traditional types of media. But I still think bang for buck, if it's done effectively, it can work quite well. But then, of course, we have to adhere to, you know, what I call the golden rules or the golden laws of advertising. Things like, obviously, you need to have a unique selling proposition, which for anybody out there who doesn't know what that is, that's basically what distinguishes you from your competitor. Because if you don't have a point of difference, you're basically advertising for your competitor, believe it or not.
So like when Hungry Jack's advertises, Macca's sales go up?
Fortunately, most of the good brands have a good and singular unique selling proposition.
Differentiated.
But I can't tell you the amount of companies, unfortunately, I've actually gone into and have said to them, what's your unique selling proposition? They've said, what? Firstly, they actually don't know what it means, and then once I've actually explained it to them, they still don't know exactly who they are.
How much does this affect the final outcome from the advertising?
The unique, as far as I'm concerned, if you don't have a strong or singular unique selling proposition, you may as well not be in business.
Okay.
Simple as that.
Yep. So has everyone got one?
I'm going to be asking later.
We'll line you all up as you walk out the door and ask.
And the thing is, it's actually getting harder the more time goes on to come up with one. Which I actually talk to clients, if you haven't got one, make one up.
Because, I mean, with Gen Y coming up, they're coming up with brand new, innovative ways to get across. And we've got to keep up with that generation.
Yeah. Absolutely, guys. They're a scary bunch, trust me.
Hey, I'm Gen Y. I just fit in there. Yep.
Thanks. I'll just make a comment about that because... a lot of businesses don't have a unique selling proposition, and this is where direct email marketing really comes into its being and becomes quite a powerful method. Email marketing, the whole reason why you have a website is to capture leads. End story, from my perspective, my humble perspective, is to, if it's not doing that, then your investment is not being exercised. And most people have created a website, and they have done that because of two reasons. One, I need to put something up there that's professional and have something that I can point people to. And secondly, because I just have to have a website because everybody else has got one, and that's the way that everything's going, and that's about as strategic as it gets, and that's problem number one. So now people are starting to realise that actually my website, there needs to be a strategy that sits behind this to capture leads, to convert those leads into sales, to actually monitor the effectiveness of campaigns that I'm using, to monitor the effectiveness of pages, how I'm actually moving my customers through the buying process, and so on and so forth.
Just talk about the buying process for a second.
Talk about the buying process. Okay.
So we get them to the website, they opt in for our newsletter or freebie or whatever it is. What do we do after then? Because a lot of people, I know quite a few business owners that have got 2,000 to 3,000 people on their database, do not send out one email campaign. They're spending thousands on trade shows to generate more leads, get all this stuff. Meanwhile, there's a database of untapped potential.
And precisely. And what's interesting is that if you look at most companies who've been around for a while and collected database names, the latent database, people who they've spoken to that have never actually done business with them, is often larger than the database that they have of existing customers that they're doing business with. Now, both of those are very valuable. Databases are an asset, and I think we all know that, but I'm not sure we understand how much of an asset they are. And so at this point, in terms of the buying process, you know that you have customers who are loyal customers. They're probably not the majority. And you have customers who have bought from you once, others which may have come into contact with you have not taken any action, and people you haven't met before that are actually coming to your website and seeing you without you knowing them or knowing that they've been there. So at each time someone comes to your website, really the website needs to act in a way that it understands who that person is, and then move them through a specific process which you've predetermined. So each customer segment has a different journey. So, for example, let me take an example of a retailer who sells outdoor equipment.
Yep.
Okay? So they might have fishing, camping. Those two will do for a starter. each of those two segments are quite different, and they will behave in different ways. And someone may have just bought a fishing rod, for example, because their son has just turned 6 and they want to take him fishing. Then you might have the avid fisher who buys the fishing rod, the best of the line, and all the accessories to go with it. Well, you would treat those two people differently, wouldn't you, if you spoke with them face to face? So similarly, the website needs to anticipate that to a certain degree, or to as much of a degree as it can, and an increasing degree over time.
So we're talking about personalisation through the website?
Talking about data, yeah, which then leads to personalisation and moving them through the buying process. Because if you have the data, you know that person X who just came to my website today is the avid fisher. So I'm not going to use my low-level promos, offers and discounts with this particular person. This particular person is a VIP customer, so they're going to get VIP treatment and offers that are going to meet that person. And the ultimate objective of using direct mail is, because I don't have a unique selling proposition,
Yep.
I need to offer a type of service and keep my customers engaged so that I actually fill the niche of that particular product or service need, and they don't need to get that from anyone else. So I have completely engaged and continued to engage this person through direct mail. Yep. And I know where they sit in the buying process, and I will manage that customer in that way.
So tell us about the level of personalisation that we can now do on our websites, because a lot of websites these days, they're a flat website, there's no personalisation to it. Here's what you get, that's it. One fits all model.
Yeah, well, those are the sites that have zero to no or little conversion, because they can't do anything. They can't anticipate.
They can't engage with the customer.
They can't engage well, and they're one face for every customer. And we know that in our businesses we have different customer groups and people who are at different stages of the whole journey.
Yep. And the personalisation, because now we can actually, through them registering online, through the website, we can now get them to see specific promotions only.
Exactly. You can get them to see whatever you want them to see, essentially. And for example, I mean, I've mentioned this many times, but Ben's website, which is currently going through phase 50. No, going through a revamp. You know, the different membership levels, whether you're an online member or whether you're a VIP member, you'll experience different interactions with the website. And that's particularly important.
Yep.
And you know, you're not going to send your VIP customer back to your website to get value when your website is set up for generation of new leads and new visitors.
Yep, fantastic. Now, I'm going to get to you in a minute, Wendy. It's relaxing listening. Chris, a question. You're talking about the golden rules in terms of advertising in print. What are the golden rules? I'm sure these guys want to hear.
Golden rules. Bar a good USP. Yeah, thanks. As the night progresses, the throat gets worse. From a design point of view, you need to have a dominant element. Okay? Too many advertisers, thank you, create ads that have what I call competing elements. Okay? A very good example of that is a lot of junk mail. Okay? And what I mean by a dominant element is that you either need to have an image that is dominating the page or a headline that is dominating a page. It pretty much always comes down to one of those two elements. Okay? That's the first thing that you need to remember. Secondly would probably be that within the headline, obviously it needs to attract attention, but it needs to have a certain promise within that headline. And what I mean by a promise is that it indirectly or subconsciously is actually promising the consumer something. It may not actually back that up, but it needs to at least appear that it's promising a certain thing. Okay. Third thing, which Tina was briefly talking about before, is a call to action. Okay. Especially important with direct mail and direct selling. A call to action could be a 1-800 number, a phone number, a website, a coupon, or something that you actually get the data and information from the client, but it also engages the consumer with the secondary stage from just reading the ad. Okay, so it takes them to the next step. But they would, I mean, look, I could go on forever about it. There's probably 20 or 30 things, but a strong, unique selling proposition, a headline that is catchy but also promises something, and then a call to action. And also the dominant elements as well, which, funnily enough, I spent about 5 years talking to students saying if there's only one thing you remember a dominant element, which is quite amazing. I think the reason why a lot of people who are advertising don't do it is because they're paying for a certain amount of media space.
Yep.
And they're thinking, I'm paying $1,000, $5,000, $20,000, whatever it is. And I want to put as much stuff down on that space that I paid for. I've paid $20,000. I'm going to fill it with as many things as possible.
I want to cover every single little millimetre.
Absolutely. I've done many examples of where I've drawn up a page filled with about 5,000 elements.
Yep.
And then I've done one which is just a white piece of paper with a very small headline, but that headline has been very catchy and has drawn a lot of people in. And I've said, which one would you choose? And 100 people out of 100 people chose the one that was white space with a tiny little headline. It's the old adage of less is more.
Yep. And in terms of getting more information on actually creating adverts, what kind of books would you recommend?
There's probably quite a few out there. Cutting Edge Advertising by Jim Atkinson, I think his surname is. That's a very good book. There's also a very good book called The Tipping Point.
Yes.
By Malcolm Gladwell, which is the book he wrote before Blink, which it's actually a lot better book than Blink.
Okay.
So for all those lovers of Blink out there, this is actually a better read. So
well, I won't go buy Blink now.
No.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's called The Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell. It's
amazing book.
It's
absolutely amazing.
It's a fantastic book. It's pretty much how societal epidemics occur and how we can how we indirectly through not so much traditional media, but by word of mouth and making sure that we activate the right people within the sales process who we're talking to. They can actually pretty much tip a product over to something that previously wasn't working to something that is a bestseller.
Yep.
So it's an amazing book. Yeah.
Fantastic. Now, Wendy, it's your turn. Yay! Now, we've talked about the different lead generational strategies through the website, through the SEO, through the advertising. How do we convert these people?
And it's very important, to know your ratios, which is the first point. So that we had a client a little while ago spending about $100,000 a month on traditional media, and we said, "Oh, what's your conversion rate?" And they said, "Oh, it's about 80%." And we said, "Let's monitor it," and it was 12%.
Oh, wow.
So it's know your ratio. So how many of you have people that ring into the business? How many of you have people that you respond to someone that's written in or made an inquiry? How many people have walk-in? Yeah, different strategies for all of them, but they revolve around the same general premise, which is all about relationship building. Now, sales is a big topic, so conversions is a big topic.
Yep.
Ben's just spent 3 months going through conversions with me and selling them. Okay.
So what is the sales process? Because we've got the old sales process of the used car salesman,
Yes.
buy now.
Yes.
What's the new generation model in the year 2007?
The new sales process is based on a really solid platform of trust. And about 40% of the sales process is based on trust. Now, how do we build trust? Anybody know how we build trust?
Say what you're going to do, then do it.
Yes, make small agreements and keep them. Absolutely. And if you have to make an agreement and keep it, so that they know that. So if you can be trusted on the small things, then obviously you can be trusted on the big things, which is the decision. So make small agreements and keep them. Trust is also about building rapport. And trust goes throughout the sales cycle, obviously, but starting with building rapport. We can build rapport. How do we build rapport? Asking questions, giving genuine compliments, giving information, listening, yes, follow-up, selling to people the way they wish to buy. And how do we know how people wish to buy? Sorry? We can ask them questions. It's noticing how they operate in the world, so that and we focus on buyer styles, which is